Hello everyone, I am Chongqing. On the streets of Taipei, the sun shines through the shadows of the trees and falls on the zebra crossing. A girl from Chongqing stands in front of the traffic light with a little uneasiness on her face. She just arrived in Taiwan and is full of curiosity, but she is also deeply shocked by the order and warmth of this land. Next, I will use the first person to tell the girl's experience in Taiwan and how this land has changed her attitude towards life and the inner world. I remember when I first came to Taiwan, I was still a young man who knew nothing. At that time, the taste of Chongqing hot pot was still on the tip of my tongue, and the sound of the Jialing River was still echoing in my ears. Sitting on the bench at people coming and going, I was very uneasy in my heart, just like pulling cotton, soft and messy. If I had to say what made me feel different first, it was really the traffic here. Crossing the road in Chongqing is like fighting a guerrilla war, taking advantage of every opportunity, fighting for it. Though when I arrived in Taiwan, I made a big joke the first time I crossed the road. That day I was standing at the intersection. Seeing that there weren't no cars, I was about to rush forward. Unexpectedly, an ant behind me quickly grabbed me as if I was going to jump off the building. "Sister, you have to wait for the green light," she said with a smile. I was so embarrassed that my face turned red. At that time, I was not convinced. I thought, what's the big deal? Chongqing people cross the road with quick eyes and hands. That's called skill. But gradually, I found that even in remote rural areas in Taiwan, people wait for red lights in a proper manner. Once I went to a small mountain village in Nantou to do business. The place was very remote, and a small road meandered up the mountain. At a three-way intersection, I saw an old farmer riding his old motorcycle, waiting motionless at the red light. I will never forget that scene in my life. The old farmer was wearing a plaid shirt with patches on top of patches, and his wrinkled face was revealed under the brim of his hat. There was not even a ghost on the road. He was just standing there like a statue. I was very curious. So I walked over and asked him, "Uncle, there are no people or cars in such a remote place. Why don't you just go there?" The old farmer turned his head slowly and smiled kindly. "Girl, this rule is just like farming. You can't be lazy. If you are lazy today, you will break the rule tomorrow. It seems that there is no one in our mountain valley, but this rule cannot be law." As he spoke, he also told me about the past, saying that when he was young, he also liked to take shortcuts and was in a hurry. Once he almost hit a primary school student riding a bicycle, which scared him so much that he never dared to mess around again. Listening to the old farmer's chattering, I felt inexplicably sad in my heart. I remembered how many times I saw old people standing in the middle of the traffic in Chongqing, trembling, unwaiting to cross the road. The cars speeding by didn't even have the intention to slow down. Looking at the old farmer in front of me, he was not waiting for a red light, but guarding a spirit. Not long after, I encountered something that completely convinced me. That day, I took a long-distance bus to Kaohsiung. Halfway through the journey, a truck in front of me suddenly dropped several cardboard boxes, which lay in all directions on the road. In Chongqing, this kind of situation would definitely be a game of speed and passion. Some cars cut in, but this guy, the cars behind all lined up and waited honestly. The nearest drivers even took the initiative to get off the car to help move the boxes. What surprised me even more was that after all the boxes were moved, these drivers actually thanked each other. One driver even smiled and said, "Today we are helping others. Maybe tomorrow it will be our turn to need help." These words warmed my heart. At that moment, I suddenly understood that this was not a question of rules or irregularities, but a kind of mutual trust and mutual understanding. Another time, I encountered a very heartwarming thing when I was riding a bus. An old lady wanted to get on the bus. She walked very slowly with a cane. If it was in Chongqing, the driver might urge her, "Hurry up, there are cars behind." But the driver here got off the bus without saying a word to help the old lady. Not only did he help, he also helped to collect the crutches and settle the old lady to sit down. When the old lady wanted to get off the bus, the driver helped so patiently. What touched me most was that the passengers on the bus were not impatient, and some even offered their seats. I heard a child behind him ask his mother why he had to wait so long. The mother answered softly, "Because we will all get old and need help from others." What a good thing to say. It directly hit my heart. Sometimes I think that there must be a deep educational foundation behind this kind of civilization. After living in Taiwan for a long time, I often see how parents educate their children. For example, when crossing the road, adults will squat down to explain to children why they have to wait for the green light. See, the green light is the elf saying hello to us, saying that it is safe now and we can go through. But it is these seemingly simple words that have planted the seeds of civilization in children's hearts. What I admire even more is that parents here never instigate their children to run red lights in order to save time. Once I saw mother and daughter waiting for a red light. The little girl was so anxious that she jumped up and down. "Mom, we're going to be late." But the mother said firmly, "It's better to be late than to break the rules." We must be honest and good children. At that moment, I was really shocked. Isn't this the best life education? Speaking of which, I have experienced many ridiculous things in Taiwan over the years. When I first came here, I always felt that the people here were too rigid and always followed the rules. Once I was riding a motorcycle in a small alley and wanted to take a shortcut and go against the flow. Who knew that an old man behind me shouted to me, "Sister, you can't do this." I was quick to say, "Isn't there no one here?" The old man was not anxious or annoyed and said with a smile, "Sister, are you riding like this? It seems like you are against your conscience." This remark choked me so much that I quickly turned around and walked on the. I remember one year during the Chinese New Year, I was waiting for a bus at Taipei Station. There were very few people on the night of New Year's Eve. I stood in front of the zebra crossing thinking that there was no one anyway, so I wanted to hurry over. At this time, a couple was standing next to me. The girl saw me leaving and whispered, "Sister, let's wait." I was stunned and said, "Aren't there no cars?" The girl smiled and said, "Waiting for the red light is not for others, but for yourself. Only in this way can you feel at ease when you go home for the new year." My heart was warmed by these words, and I suddenly felt that this New Year's Eve was particularly warm. After living in Taiwan for a long time, I began to notice some details. For example, most of the motorcyclists here will take the initiative to give way to pedestrians. Once I saw a young man on a motorcycle stopped in front of the zebra crossing and let a mother pushing a stroller cross the road. After the mother passed, she turned around and thanked him. The young man grinned and said, "It's my duty." This scene is so common in Taiwan, but every time I see it, my heart is warm. What I admire most is the bus drivers here. In Chongqing, bus drivers seem to be racing against time forever, and urging people to get on and off the bus is like a war. The drivers here in Taiwan are very patient. When it rains, they will wait for the elderly to hold an umbrella and stand firmly before driving. When going to school, if you see students running behind you, you will wait for them. Once it rained heavily and I took the bus home. An old grandfather with crutches wanted to get off the bus. The driver not only helped to hold an umbrella, but also parked the car under the eaves so that the old grandfather would not get wet. The driver drove away only after the old grandfather was safely under the eaves. A passenger behind me sighed that young people nowadays are not so sensible. The driver smiled and said, "No, our young people in Taiwan are also great." Indeed, I found that young people in Taiwan are quite disciplined. Once I was in a convenience store and saw a group of middle school students. Everyone lined up to buy things, talking and laughing, but they were very orderly. When they went out, they took the initiative to give way to an ant carrying heavy objects. This reminds me of Chongqing, where some students rushed out as soon as school was over, pushing and shoving like a war. After living here for a long time, I have also changed slowly. I used to rush across the road, but now I enjoy waiting for the red light. Standing at the intersection, looking at the sky, listening to the birds singing, and occasionally running into acquaintances to chat. It feels like life has suddenly slowed down, which makes people feel particularly at ease. I recently went back to Chongqing. As soon as I got off the plane, I was stunned by the scene in front of me. People shuttled in the traffic, car horns honked one after another, and the traffic lights at the intersection seemed to be a decoration. I stood on the overpass, looking at the chaos below, and suddenly I felt indescribable discomfort. I remember when I was a child, my mother always said that rushing was the mantra of Chongqing people, but now I understand what is lost behind the rush. However, I still see hope. Found that Chongqing is getting better now. At least on some major roads, people have begun to pay attention to obeying traffic rules. Especially at the gates of some schools, there are young traffic police uncles maintaining order, and many volunteers are helping. Seeing these, I was thinking that civilization and progress are never achieved overnight. If everyone can start from themselves, from the little things, what will our city become? Just like the changes that Taiwan has brought to me over the years, it is not based on coercion or punishment, but everyone knows that following the rules is not for others, but to make our lives better. Now I often video chat with relatives and friends in Chongqing. They ask me how I'm doing in Taiwan, and I tell them these things. Some people say that I have become verbose, but I know that the experience in Taiwan over the years is like a seed, taking root and sprouting in my heart, and one day in the future it may also bloom into a civilized flower. I have learned a lot over the years, not only to obey traffic rules, but more importantly, to respect others, learn patience, and learn to empathize. Whenever I see vehicles on the road driving in an orderly manner and pedestrians consciously obeying the rules, I feel very happy. This kind of happiness is not because I can buy something expensive, but because I'm in an environment of mutual understanding and mutual respect. The biggest gain from living in Taiwan over the years is not how much money I have made, but the change in my mentality. I used to think that time is money and being slow means falling behind, and being in a hurry is life. But now I understand that true happiness is the sense of security found in abiding by the rules, the warmth felt in mutual courtesy, and making the society a better place in the little things. That's all for today's video. If you think what I said is interesting, please like and follow me. Your support is my biggest motivation to update. Thank you.